Hello and welcome to Useful Idiots Monday Morning, where we talk about the Sunday morning news shows that we watch so that you don't have to. I'm Katie Halper, and I'm joined by, of course,
Aaron Maté.
Hi, Aaron.
Hello. Good morning.
Good Monday morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the compliment on my earrings. They're a gift from Kate Levin. So, Kate Levin, if you're watching, I want to thank you for these. And also make sure that you, right after this, because you can't get an hour with me and Aaron just isn't enough. We know
it's not enough.
It is not
enough.
It's not enough. So what do we do for you? We then go on to call in, and the link to that is in the description of this YouTube video. And you join us on call in. It's a free app you access through your cell phone, and you get to ask us questions, listen in, make comments. It's a good time for everyone. Yeah. Right?
I'm sorry. I'm just doing my due diligence and tweeting out the.
Great. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. No, it is a great time.
Yeah.
It is a great time.
That was just like a rhetorical right. I was really that was my giving people a chance to like the stream. That's how you say right. Gotcha. And thank you, Stephen Miles Cook, for your very insightful, astute, accurate comment, which says Monday morning with Useful Idiots Substack subscription, still a better deal than CNN Plus. And yes, that's another great reminder, which is that you can become subscribers. And what do you get when you're a subscriber to our Substack? You get ad-free content, and you also get extended interviews, longer interviews. Actually, a really good one with Scott Ritter from this week. So definitely want to invite you all to do that. Yeah. And again, make sure you like this. Can we like our own streams? We can, right? But I wonder if
we can give a little boost. Sure.
Yeah. So Wilson, maybe do one of those. And thank you, Caliu, for your very generous donation. What is CA again? I can't remember what currency that is. But
Canadian.
Canadian. How could I do that? I'm sorry to Aaron and all the Canadians out there watching. I was just pretending not to remember. Every time I see that, I think it's California, which obviously doesn't make sense because they're very different in many ways, but they don't have their own currency. Not yet, at least. Yeah. Gregory Schmidt points out 488 people watching and only 70 likes. Guys, you're not all hate watching. Mountain Dweller, thank you for saying y'all too are so cute. I hope you express how cute we are by liking the stream. If you like the stream, you're co-signing that. If you don't like the stream, you're attacking both of our physical appearances. We can't have that. Can't be neutral on a moving train, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, so yeah, smash it. Should we just start?
Well, we have a world of primetime entertainment coming at you today, pulling together all these clips from the Sunday morning news shows, and we should not wait any longer. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
CNN, new ownership decided to shut down the CNN Plus streaming service less than a month after it was launched by the previous management team.
Just in case anyone's not familiar with this man, he is a Useful Idiots Monday morning fan favorite, Brian Stelter, CNN media correspondent, and he's got some crazy news to report. We all know everyone watching this signed up for a new CNN service called CNN Plus, where you pay like $10 a month or whatever it was, and you get to pay for all the shows on CNN that nobody is watching for free.
Right.
It's a brilliant concept. And somehow it didn't work out, Katie. Somehow it did not work out. And after 3 weeks and like $300 million, they shut it down. And now Brian Stelter, who doubles not only as CNN's media correspondent, but also CNN's #1 cheerleader, now has to handle the news. And let's see how he reports it.
Give me Stelter.
New turn was front page news, stunning news, and painful news for everyone involved. Years of development possibly down the drain. Some of the shows may never be seen. Hundreds of staffers may be laid off, though the company is trying to place many of them in new jobs. Amid these bruising headlines, folks are trying to make sense of it, and some partisans are leaping to predictable talking points about politics. But the truth is, this was a corporate move. This CNN Plus
It was a corporate move, Katie. Some
Corporate move.
partisans are pointing out that less than 10,000 people were watching, but that's just partisan talking points.
Right.
This really
They're just trying to make sense of it because it doesn't make any sense. How else can you explain its failure? It has to be an ideological move.
Exactly. It's corporate jargon that us lay people are not sophisticated enough to understand. But luckily, Brian Stelter is here to explain it for us.
Service was doomed because of the timing of a merger and clashing streaming strategies. The new owner of CNN, Warner Brothers Discovery, has big plans to combine multiple streaming platforms to make one big challenger for Netflix. And speaking of which, this week, Netflix's first quarter earnings came out. An incredible snag. Subscriber numbers actually declining after the pandemic surge. Its stock taking a nosedive at the news. Lots of questions about Netflix and whether it might actually be a takeover target now. Let's talk about it all.
So CNN Plus was shut down, but hey, Netflix's numbers are down. So,
I know he's so happy, right? Even. Yeah.
And of course, what he does not mention was the amount of viewers watching CNN Plus. And that's now been widely reported. It was also in the New York Times, and the numbers were, and this is what was the primary reason for this network shutting down, was the head of Discovery, whatever it's called, looked at the numbers, and it was less than 10,000 people watching CNN Plus, which is less people than watch a Useful Idiots YouTube video.
Right.
Just appalling numbers for a news network that spent $300 million launching an entire new platform. And that's what did it.
Yeah. Guys, that's what we got, those numbers without that huge investment. So imagine the numbers we get if CNN pumps them into our coffers. Just saying, CNN. You may not have CNN Plus anymore. You could have Useful Idiots.
Useful Idiots minus, because really the main Useful Idiots show is always going to be here, but we'd be willing to give them the minus version.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We're open to talks about that. Yeah.
We'll do it for half the cost of CNN. We'll do it for 150 mil. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
Even a quarter.
Disney and more with our panel of experts here. We have Axios media reporter Sarah Fisher, Mara Schiavocampo, host of the podcast Run Tell This, and a former correspondent at NBC and ABC.
Just pause quickly.
In the media world.
Note how this get like the guest on the right is looking at the different camera. Isn't that funny?
Yes. Oh, I noticed all of them are looking at different cameras.
Yeah,
it's not just one on the right. They're all. You're right. I noticed
she's like
that.
She's mugging for a camera, like
Right.
It's kind of artistic. I like it.
It is. Yeah. It has a kind of Goya or Velasquez feel to it.
Yeah.
And our senior media reporter Oliver Darcy also with us. Sarah, you broke news. First of all, you were a guest on the first episode of my CNN Plus show, so thank you. Then you broke news about the service being doomed. So let's be very transparent about it. What did you learn this month, and what led to the closure of CNN Plus?
Yeah, One second, really quickly. I think that it's interesting.
And explain that without mentioning our low viewer numbers. So let's be transparent and let's talk about what happened, but just don't mention that nobody was watching it. Go.
Yeah. Besides that, be brutally honest. Talk about everything except the actual evidence that's relevant for our discussion. Maybe she knew it was going to tank after she went on it because she knew how bad it was. Or maybe she herself helped tank it because she was a bad guest. All possibilities.
Now, I actually haven't even watched this yet, so I would love to be proven wrong if they actually mentioned that nobody was watching it, but I'm going to go out on a limb and predict that they don't.
All right, let's see what happens.
Month, and what led to the closure of CNN Plus?
Yeah, well, CNN executives had been plotting this for 2 years. But then in 2021, we found out that CNN's parent company, Warner Media, would merge with Discovery. And what we come to find is that after CNN's head, Jeff Zucker, exited the company, resigned in shock in February, executives at Discovery were starting to question whether or not CNN Plus fit in with their strategy. Discovery, as you mentioned, wanted to create one big streaming service. They wanted it to be general entertainment. CNN Plus is a smaller subscription service. And so I think ultimately they took a look at the books after the merger.
Katie, this is a classic story of a mom and pop shop being swallowed up by corporate bloodsuckers who don't respect hardworking employees. Okay. CNN is this upstart, wide-eyed, optimistic operation. People just believe in giving people farm-to-table news, giving people just like the straight up goods. And this evil corporation Discovery came in and did not recognize the blood, the sweat, the tears that went into all the work, and they just and they picked it to the curb. This is a classic mom and pop story.
The warfare in which they engaged for the Zucker.
That's right. They went to war for Jeff Zucker. That's right.
Right. They went to war for him because he offered them a heat shield.
That's right.
Remember that? Right. That's something you can't pay for, that heat.
No, you can't.
The power of the Zook. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's get back to this. Hearing more about this poor, scrappy CNN Plus swallowed up by the evil corporation that just didn't respect hard news.
Completed on April 8th. They thought this is too expensive. It might not ever get to profit on time, and it doesn't fit in with what we want to do. It's better to cut it off now than to keep it lagging for months while they decide.
All right, Oliver, you and I work here, so we'll save you. Mara, next to you as an outsider looking at this. What's your perspective on this and what it means for the news?
Wait, why is he skipping Oliver? If he has him on the panel, why is he talking to him?
He's saving him for last because he's the most important.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
Business.
Well, it's certainly shocking from the outside looking in because of the fanfare that preceded this launch. You know, we're talking about estimated $300 million that were spent, huge marketing and promotion, big names that were brought in, Chris Wallace, Audie Cornish, Eva Longoria. And so it was shocking that this happened so abruptly. But at the end of the day, this is a business decision. And, you know, there are debates about whether or not journalism should be treated as a business versus a public service. But it is a business for better or for worse. And so to your point, as the new owner, do you come in and see something that's not working and continue to throw good money after bad? And it appears that they made the decision not to continue doing that they did not think this was in the best long-term interest for the company. But again, from the outside looking in, I am very curious to see what they're going to do with all of this talent. I mean, these are huge names with huge followings. Where are they going to go? I
had a source say to me this week, everyone's a product of their history. And the new management team at Discovery, their history includes some niche streaming services that did not do well, right? Sarah, they launched streaming services that were kind of like CNN Plus, although they're not the same, and they failed. And so Discovery does not believe in that model. And it's hard to fathom as an employee worried about my colleagues being laid off, that this was simply about, you know, corporate strategy. But that's what it was.
And no numbers.
This is amazing. Okay, so first of all, CNN spends years being just a joke of an outlet, you know, constantly lying to its viewers, you know, look at whatever, Russiagate, Hunter Biden's laptop, basically becoming partisan hacks. That's what CNN has become, along with MSNBC and Fox News as well. And instead of just owning up to that's why nobody wants their product, they have to come up with like, it's a really tough challenge. Like, how do you on the air whitewash your own demise and your own cancellation? And so now it's like this is the narrative they've settled on. It's a corporate thing. Wilson, I put in the chat the New York Times story that actually reveals the actual developments that happen behind the scenes. We can quote it if you want. It's right there in the opening paragraphs. I'll read it.
And thank you, Mark Silverstein. It should have been called CNN Minus. That's true.
So inside the implosion of CNN Plus, David Zaslav had been chief executive of Warner Brothers Discovery for all of a few hours when he learned he had a problem. On April 11th, the day his newly merged company began trading on NASDAQ, Mr. Zaslav greeted New York employees with pasta and ice cream bars. That's a weird menu. Delivering an impromptu rallying cry to his new charges. He was on his way to Washington, next stop on the coronation tour, when a call came in. His team had just gotten its first look at data from CNN Plus. The much promoted subscription service started 2 weeks before, and the news was grim. Fewer than 10,000 viewers were watching at any given time, despite a multi-million-dollar ad campaign and big hires like Chris Wallace. They were recommending a cold-eyed review. 3 days later, shortly after Mr. Zaslav appeared with Oprah Winfrey for a rah-rah company town hall, he gathered his deputies inside a low-slung stucco building in Burbank on the Warner Brothers studio lot and said he agreed with their conclusion. Shut it down. Okay? That's the actual story. There's no way Brian Stelter doesn't know that. That's exactly what happened. But now it's his job to go out there and pretend that this was just some kind of corporate strategy thing, not about shitty ratings, because nobody wants to watch. And
it's that kind of creative thinking that Brian Stelter and CNN Plus brings you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Pasta and ice cream bars is an Italian hate crime. Maybe.
So do you want more of that clip? I mean, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I think we have to We're almost done with it.
Okay.
And we got to hear from
That's
Darcy.
what it was. Then there's also a differing view on whether or not it was successful. People inside CNN.
Well, wasn't it too soon to know?
Well,
Too
that's the
soon to
argument,
know.
right? Because this was sort of unprecedented. We've never really had a subscription news and video app. People wanted to see what the precedent this would set. We're never going to really find out.
Right.
We know that in the 2.5 weeks since
We'll
launch,
never
it got
know.
about 150,000 subscribers, paid subscribers. Now, some
What's gonna
people in the
happen
news
to
business
them?
have been saying to me, hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But the challenge is the money they spent to get those paid subscribers. You're talking $300 million of investment to date. The plan was to spend $1 billion over the next 4 years with the hope of getting to profitability after 4 years. The question, Brian, becomes if people are
By the way, hope of getting to profitability. And Bisquick points out, oh, it was ahead of its time. You know what CNN Plus was? It may not have been profit in the FIT sense of the word, but it was the other kind of profit. Jesus Christ, like ahead of its time. So.
And just like Jesus was, you know,
nailed on the cross.
He was nailed on the cross. CNN has been nailed on the cross of truth.
Yeah. Yeah, of truth. Yeah. Met an early demise. Except unlike Jesus, I don't think that CNN Plus is going to rise again.
Ooh.
I mean, I had to point that out.
Damn.
We just went through Easter. Yeah.
Damn.
I went there.
Damn.
paying, $5.99 or $2.99 for that, lifetime membership, is it ultimately going to be worth the spend?
Right.
And that was the challenge.
How
I think
many times
Discovery
can
took
they
a
say the
look at this and they said,
same thing?
we don't think it's ultimately going to be worth the spend. Even though that's a good number of subscribers for now,
Right.
it might not be a good business move.
So they say they will focus on the core business, this channel as well as CNN Digital. Oliver, what's next for CNN?
For CNN as a channel, I mean, Chris Licht is coming in. He's the new president of CNN. And there's a lot of things on his plate, right? He has a new 9 p.m. host he has to appoint. He has to figure out what to do with the talent that was brought in for CNN Plus. And also, there are hundreds of employees who potentially could be laid off. And so he's going to try to find, in the town hall, he was talking about trying to absorb some of those people into the organization.
Right.
And so he's got work to do if he's going to, he's got hundreds of people. So he's got work to do if he's going to try to find them other places inside CNN.
Now, is this story, Sarah, related to the Netflix story? Because it's a coincidence that
No.
CNN Plus was shut down
No.
on the same week that Netflix had that.
He's just
horrible
trying
earnings
to. He's just
Yeah,
trying
no-
to hide to make CNN's terrible numbers look like part of a trend as opposed to
Yeah.
uniquely bad.
Yeah. Netflix, most popular streaming service in the world. CNN Plus, least popular streaming service in the world. But
Right.
it's all connected. It's all
Right.
connected.
Lower numbers. Yeah.
report. But is there a similarity in the story about the streaming competition?
Yes, definitely. During the pandemic, there was a huge boom in subscription streaming. People were willing to put their money out. But what we found
like
is
she's
that
wearing a
that
backpack
market
on her
might
lap or
actually not be
something.
as big as we once thought it was. We might have hit a point of saturation. Over and over, analysts
That's
have
what it
found
is,
that
Aaron,
consumers
it's
are willing to spend
saturation.
around $40 a month on subscription services. But that hasn't increased.
That's
even
why
as
your
the
headline
supply.
here says this is a sea
Look at
change
how-
for
look at
streaming.
these-
It is.
Look
because
at these graphics they had prepared. Netflix slowdown, a sea change for streaming. They're like, can we make sure that we get some headlines about how terrible things are for Netflix in our story about CNN Plus? Just get some, let's do a little zoom in on a headline.
even though the supply has increased, the demand has not. Budgets have not increased. And we're now at a point of inflation. Consumers are starting to be more wary. As a result, we're seeing an introduction and a rise of ad-supported streaming services. That's the exact opposite of what CNN Plus was. CNN Plus didn't have ads.
Right, no ads, right.
It was just subscriptions. Netflix, after many years of saying we don't want to put ads on our service, has finally come out this week and said, look, if we want to expand the number of subscribers, we have to include an ad-supported tier. And by the way, that's what everyone has done. Disney
Right.
Plus is now doing it. Obviously Discovery, HBO Max, you name it. They're all putting ads on the service. That's the big change here. It's no longer going to be ads-free subscription everything because people just don't have enough money to pay for that.
We learned so much from this segment, including that. Why is that backwards? Did you notice that? Wilson, can we go back to that?
CNN,
The
new
last shot of
ownership
that?
decided to shut down the CNN Plus after
That's an interesting transition.
Well, it's just because
Backwards.
everything's backwards. Yeah.
Everything's topsy-turvy.
Everything's going
CNN
crazy.
Plus should be doing so well. What kind
Yeah.
of inverted world are we living in when CNN Plus is doing badly? Wow. Yeah.
That was an awkward segment. That was a really awkward segment.
Really
I mean,
awkward
kudos
segment,
to everyone involved for doing their best, but man, how do you get out there and dance around the fact that nobody likes you? It's just awkward.
Well, we just saw it. That tap dance.
Yeah. Woof.
Yeah. Wow.
All right.
Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers and Gene Kelly. That's who we just saw on that stage.
Nimble. It was very nimble.
It was nimble. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Let's go to the next clip. What do we got next?
Like most presidents, Biden was keenly aware of public criticism. And unlike his former running mate, Barack Obama, he did not pretend to ignore the scolding of opinion columnists and television pundits. I shouldn't watch it, Biden would tell aides, but you know how it is. And he's said to be a devoted viewer of MSNBC's Morning Joe and CNN's Don Lemon Tonight. Biden was stung by the barbs of various talking heads with a sensitivity his aides found unfortunate. I don't know, Sarah. I liked hearing that the president's watching and tuning in. Barack Obama always pretended not to watch, or actually did not watch cable news.
It's interesting just because Donald Trump, we knew, devoured it.
And
so when the Biden administration came in, they wanted to set up this juxtaposition, right? We're not going to be bothered by the fray. We're not going to be bothered by Twitter. But in reality, they are just like everyone else. They're humans. They love to see what people are saying about them, how.
Yeah.
They're just like everybody else, except nobody else watches these shows, as evidenced by the fact that CNN Plus just shut down.
Right, exactly. Yeah. They're just like everybody else who's doesn't represent anyone in the world. Yeah.
Good of a job or bad of a job they're doing. So of course he watches.
Of course he watches.
Yeah. He seems excited. Yeah.
Well, it was a tough week for Brian Stelter and his colleagues. So what better pick me up than the knowledge that the President Biden, is watching their network. That's pretty much all they live for is the approval of their political heroes who one would think they may be covering critically, but really they just want the approval of.
Right. Yeah. So we got he watches Don Lemon show.
Yeah.
And then he watches, of course, Morning Joe.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad that Brian is excited about the possibility that Biden watches him. Let's go to Meet the Press, which is this week was guest hosted by Kristen Welker, and she's talking to National Security Advisor John Feiner.
On the battlefield.
Is the U.S. policy objective right now for Ukraine to defeat Russia? Can you say that definitively?
So I can say our objective is to continue to enable the types of activity.
First of all, he looks like such a zhlub.
Like a what?
Zhlub.
What does that mean?
A zhlub? It's like a Nevish. It's a Yiddish word. It's like a zhlub, like zhlubi, like Metzi, like a slob. You got to shave the beard.
I personally love it when U.S. officials, diplomats, like the masters of the world who are like ruling over our universe, look like, babies and look unkempt. It's sort of it shows really who our rulers really are. And but I have to say he looks like he's not that tall, and so any man who's not that tall is a man after my own heart. So I have to give him props for that. It's good.
And you can just tell.
It's good seeing a short brother get some shine on TV.
Right. Yeah. He looks like a Smurf. Someone's saying. Yeah. And do you have short dar, or was that just based on the way he looks next to her?
That's that's my short dar.
It's a vibe. Okay, got it. Yeah. It's a short vibe. Yeah. All right. Let's keep going.
That allowed Ukrainians to win a victory in the battle for Kyiv. Russia intended to take over the capital of Ukraine, to topple the Ukrainian government. The Ukrainians won that battle. We think that exact approach is going to be the way we follow.
Yeah, he has no idea if that's true. Doesn't seem to me that Russia was trying to overthrow the Ukrainian government, or else they would have gone a lot harder at the beginning and, gone after Kyiv and destroyed a lot more than they've destroyed.
Yeah, he would have actually overthrown the Ukrainian government.
So, perhaps. I mean, that seems like a fantasy, but.
Right. Let's watch this from the beginning. And it's my fault for the zhlub analysis, but I couldn't be silent. Okay.
Is the U.S. policy objective right now for Ukraine to defeat Russia? Can you say that definitively?
So I can say our objective is to continue to enable the types of activity that allowed Ukrainians to win a victory in the battle for Kyiv. Russia intended to take over the capital of Ukraine, to topple the Ukrainian government. The Ukrainians won that battle. We think that exact approach is going to be the way we follow through in the battles ahead, now focused on the South and the East.
Also, then, by that logic, is the broader policy.
And remind me again, who's fighting Russia? Is it the U.S. or is it Ukraine? Because he's like, we're going to do this. He's talking basically as if it's the U.S. fighting the battle, which is actually accurate, although it's not the official story we're supposed to know. Really, we're supposed to believe that it's Ukraine standing up to Russia, and the U.S. is just, innocent bystander doing what it can to help Ukraine. But really, the U.S. is a co-belligerent. That's very clear by now.
Right. Co-belligerent. Yeah. CB. Yeah.
The goal to see Ukraine defeat Russia writ large.
In our view, Russia has already lost many of its initial war aims. They have intended to divide the West. They have resulted in a West and a NATO alliance that is much more united than it's ever been. They thought that they would unsettle and undermine and maybe even overthrow the Ukrainian government. President Zelensky is firmly entrenched in power, and Ukrainian democracy continues. Russia is more isolated than the world. Its economy is weaker. They are failing at virtually every one of.
There's a slight contradiction. Maybe I'm being too literal here, but first he said their goal was to overthrow the Ukrainian government. That's what he said in his first answer. Now he says their goal was to maybe overthrow the Ukrainian government. So he's backing off that a little bit.
But Aaron, he's constantly getting new intelligence, and right while he was doing this, there was new intelligence coming in through his ear. Yeah,
that's right.
Their initial objectives, and our objective is going to be to continue that trend.
And you just heard Mr. Zhovka express real skepticism about the UN Secretary General holding talks with Putin. How is the administration viewing those talks? Are you skeptical, or do you think that there could be some progress that comes out of those talks?
Well, I think
How do you feel when something happens that involves people talking and not bombing each other?
Right.
And, us sending in missiles to get more people killed. How do you feel about that? How does it make you feel this whole thing about diplomacy and talks?
Yeah, it makes him feel, I bet he feels a lot of discomfort. Like Chuck Todd isn't there to talk about it, but I'm sure he would feel a lot of discomfort. Yeah.
The master of discomfort. Yes.
Yeah.
Very important principle for any negotiations and any discussions diplomatically on the conflict of Ukraine is that Ukrainians should be the touchstone. There should be nothing that goes on about the conflict in Ukraine without close consultation and involvement of the Ukrainian government.
You just heard Mr. Zhovka say that the UN Secretary General is not authorized to speak on behalf of Ukraine. So is there any point to these talks?
Again, I defer to the Ukrainians on what their conversations have been with the United Nations. We're in very close consultation with the Ukrainians and our other partners and allies, and we'll be proceeding along those lines.
Let me ask you about these new satellite images, which appear to show evidence of one, potentially two mass graves outside of Mariupol. Has the U.S. assessed that we are, in fact, looking at mass graves or these evidence of more war crimes here, John?
So we've been quite clear that we have seen significant evidence of atrocities, of war crimes. You've heard very strong language come out of our administration about a number of the tactics the Russians are using, deliberately targeting civilians in places like Mariupol and elsewhere. That would be wholly consistent with how Russia has been prosecuting this war from the beginning.
Have you confirmed that those are new, that's new evidence of new mass graves?
Again, I've got nothing to announce on that specific allegation, but it is wholly consistent with everything that we've seen Russia doing, and it should stop.
And as you well know, President Zelensky has asked the Biden administration to declare Russia a state sponsor of terrorism. What is the latest update? Is the administration prepared to do that at this point?
So I think we've been clear that we're looking at that as we're looking at a whole range of other additional steps that we could take to hold Russia accountable for the crimes that it's perpetrating on the ground in Ukraine. But I would also say that we are not waiting for those determinations to be made in order to start imposing costs on Russia. Costs that at this point, outside analysts have said is going to lead to a 15% or more reduction in Russia's GDP over the course of the year, and that Russia's own officials are saying the impacts are going to continue to intensify in the weeks and months ahead.
All right, John.
I've yet to see a U.S. official who's not giddy at the prospect of contracting Russia's economy, which of course will only hurt average Russians, not Putin and the oligarchs. They love to talk about how their sanctions will crush Russia's economy. And by the way, the U.S. terrorism list is so funny. The state sponsor right now, it's Cuba, it's North Korea, it's Iran, and Syria. Those are the countries right now on the state on the list of sponsored terrorism. It's of course the most politicized list there is. The idea that Cuba, for example, is sponsoring terrorism is such a joke. So really, the terrorism list is used as a tool to try to crush governments that the U.S. wants to overthrow. The irony of putting Syria on that list is that in Syria, it was actually the U.S., and I just wrote about this in a very long article. It was the U.S. that sponsored an al-Qaeda-dominated insurgency, armed them, and actually helped them take control of what one senior Biden official, Brett McGirt, calls al-Qaeda's largest safe haven since 9/11. That's the province of Idlib in Syria, which al-Qaeda now controls, which they conquered with the support of the U.S. and with U.S. weapons. So the irony of putting Syria on that list is pretty stark.
Yeah. Look at that face, that Punim, that Jalebi Punim. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Oh, by the way, Kristen Welker was part of that that media chorus calling for, I don't remember if she asked about the no-fly zone or something, but it was something belligerent that The Intercepted, that mashup of different media reporters, really horny for war. She was one of them.
Oh my God, the media is so thirsty for war. It's out of control. It's out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Shall we go to the next clip?
Do you believe the U.S. wants Ukraine to fight to a stalemate?
All right. So this is Margaret Brennan of CBS interviewing the Ukrainian foreign minister, I believe. And listen, Katie, another style break. You know, no matter my disagreements with these people, I do have to recognize a good blazer when I see it. Last week,
it is a good blazer,
to Donna Brazil's blazer. This is a great blazer too.
Yeah, and it's actually very off-brand for CNN for these types of people, because they don't really do this shade.
No, it's nice.
They do blues, reds, like purples, pinks, yellows. This is new. This is a
like
natural
an olive,
a taupe, a mushroom.
Taupe?
Yeah, it's a little too brown to be olive, but yeah. Let us know your names for this color.
All right.
Or to actually defeat Vladimir Putin, to actually win?
I personally think that it's impossible to win the war in the battle with nuclear state. We may protect democracy in Europe, on our continent, in the world, but I think...
My bad. This is the Ukrainian prime minister, not the foreign minister.
Okay. I think that this war should be finished when we clean our territories from Russian occupants.
Are you saying that a full withdrawal of Russian troops is the only way to end the war?
I think yes. If Russians will leave territory of Ukraine, if we will have guarantees of safety for our country from our partners, if we will have possibility to recover our country and using Russians' frozen assets.
Okay, well, basically the top question on the Sunday news shows, from what I can gather over the last 2 months, has been, are we sending enough weapons to Ukraine? Can we send them any more? That pretty much is that I would bet is the top recurring question on these shows, especially on CBS's Face the Nation.
Yeah, I think that is true. We could tally it up.
Thirsty for war. All right.
Someone points out she's wearing that where is this? She's wearing that color in solidarity with Zelensky's costumes.
Okay, that could be it.
Yeah.
That could be it.
Did just return.
All right, so now we're back to Meet the Press, and we have Senator Roy Blunt being interviewed.
And you did just return from the region, and now, of course, President Zelensky has said he's anticipating a visit from the Secretaries of State and Defense. The Biden administration not confirming that visit, but assuming that it does, in fact, happen, what needs to happen in order for that visit to be effective, to bear fruit?
Well, I think you always want to have some deliverable when you have a visit like that. But
Do you
in this
expect
case,
they will? Do you expect they will?
I think they'll probably be able to announce some things about equipment, about the speeding up our efforts there. In this case, it's just a deliverable to go. And, I think it's a good thing if they go and when they go. I think we ought to be thinking about reopening our embassy there. And if the Ukrainian people can stay, I think our diplomats are willing to be there.
That could be a cool fast food place, like deliverables to go.
Yeah, I like it.
You just
what kind
roll
of
up.
specials would there be?
You just roll up and get some deliverables.
Yeah. Like, would those be like arms in this case?
Like like a couple of Stinger missiles.
Right, like a drive-through.
Yeah.
A drive-through. You're like, hey, I'll have 2 Stinger missiles. Would you like the meal or the standalone? I'll have it.
I'll say this: the media wants it supersized every single day.
Right.
They want those weapons supersized. That's the recurring message.
And maybe they could throw in some fries too.
Just last week, I think they're a little bit frustrated that they're barely outside the country, but they're outside the country and trying to manage all of the efforts of American volunteers. There's several hundred American volunteer groups trying to help people get food and shelter and clothing, and those Americans are there, and I think the people that represent our country officially can safely be there now as well.
He's so energetic, this guy. So engaging. Very blunt.
Well, that was great. Thank you, Senator Blunt,
Yeah.
for blessing us with that. Who we got next?
Up on the screen right now, one way viewers can donate to.
All right, we got
yeah, this is Jake Tapper,
Jake
and this
Tapper.
is actually from last week. We missed this, but
We missed this. It's too important to not address this week. Yeah.
yeah. So Jake is going to tell us about how much he cares about people suffering from war, if they happen to live in a country where the U.S. has a geopolitical interest in painting the victims as when the U.S. has an interest in hyping up the victims while ignoring victims that the U.S. is helping to kill elsewhere.
Right.
I have up on the screen right now one way viewers can donate to World Central Kitchen and to dozens of others of worthwhile accredited charities. Please visit cnn.com/impact. cnn.com/impact. Experts are now predicting that this horrific war might last the whole year, if not longer. And I'm worried that folks around the world might already be starting to shrug and hold up their hands in frustration and even turn away, as we do, as the world does, so dishonoring the promise of never again. Let's try to pledge to each other.
People turn away when CNN Plus is on because no one's watching it, as we do.
Right now, on this Easter, on this Passover, on this Ramadan, to try and
all right, shout out. I'm going to give him credit for this. Unlike Chuck Todd, he mentions Ramadan. Remember, Chuck Todd didn't mention Ramadan. He just did Easter and Passover. So give credit where credit's due. Okay.
Retreat into the numb safety of looking away. The people of Ukraine, like those of Yemen and Syria and Myanmar and Darfur and Rwanda and Bosnia and Herzegovina and Cambodia, they deserve at the very least our attention.
Yeah, except he'll never give any attention to anyone who is the victim of U.S. bombings or U.S. supported bombings. So how often has Jake Tapper covered Yemen?
Right.
And
it's nice that he named them.
Notice how he didn't mention Gaza, which is
of course
has been attacked repeatedly by Israel, and the Palestinians in Jerusalem who were just attacked while worshiping at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So, and then he invokes the Holocaust. It's just so cynical. And of course, he will never ever fundraise for the people of Gaza.
That's right. That was the thing that I was thinking about when I was watching this. It's just how selective it is. Right. Imagine if having a Yemen fundraiser. That would be great if we could do that.
He would never do that.
Yeah.
Never do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's funny how these things get presented as totally as like apolitical, just humanitarian. But again, there's a major choice that goes into this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why fundraise for this and not for Yemen?
Absolutely.
For starving children. Yeah.
Because what they're really doing is they're not fundraising, they're manufacturing consent for war. Because to justify flooding a country with weapons, you have to build up this humanitarian concern and give the impression that somehow sending more weapons in will somehow help the people you claim to care about.
Right.
And really what you're doing is prolonging their suffering.
Terrible.
Okay. Well, looks like we have more on deck.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, this is that thirsty, that media thirst for war.
Well, first, yeah, I thought we could watch that, but first we haven't. Don't we have another? Don't we have a Meet the Press roundtable on McCarthy? That was clip 7.
start off talking.
Okay, some more Meet the Press. Chuck isn't here. He's off this week.
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, sorry. We should have warned you at the beginning. Yeah.
Of former President Trump. The tape brings it home in sharp relief, right? And the thing that I was struck by, as much as anything else, was it says a lot about this era right now, that it was better for Kevin McCarthy to be caught out in a lie, denying something he actually said, than to be caught out saying something negative about President Trump, because he was more worried about that.
Sarah Fagan.
I was going to say, as soon as those receipts came out, you see, Kevin McCarthy apologizing to President Trump, them trying to.
I think actually, can we show the clip, because we want to show the actual McCarthy audio? Can we show the clip of Warren responding to this? Wilson, because I realize that for people to get this, we should show them. Whichever clip it is that that we see the actual McCarthy thing. Good, yeah. Okay.
Is it this one, or is it the good explanation one?
I don't know. Let's start playing this one, then we'll see.
I want to ask about something the New York Times reported this past week. They revealed new audio from House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy from the days immediately following January 6th. Listen to what he said in two separate calls that, again, the New York Times reported.
He told me he does have some responsibility for what happened, and he needs to acknowledge that.
The only discussion I would have with him is that I think this will pass, and it would be my recommendation we should do that.
He's not saying that now. What's your reaction?
There's an echo.
Kevin McCarthy is a liar and a traitor. This is outrageous. And that is really the illness that pervades the Republican leadership right now. That they say one thing to the American public and something else in private. They understand that it is wrong. What happened, an attempt to overthrow our government, and that the Republicans instead want to continue to try to figure out how to make 2020 election different instead of spending their energy on how it is that we go forward in order to build an economy, in order to make this country work better for the people who sent us to Washington. Shame on Kevin McCarthy.
Okay, so now let's watch that the roundtable on this.
Now, Katie, I just want to raise a technical issue. Maybe we can get our technical support team on this case. During that Elizabeth Warren clip, instead of comments, people making effusive praise of Elizabeth Warren because everyone's a big fan of hers, it was strange. Instead of words, there was this emoji, and it was green, and it was shaped kind of like a snake.
Huh,
so
I wonder what that was.
Something's going on in the system of YouTube, or maybe specific useful idiots, where people are trying to type, go Liz, go Liz. It's coming out like a snake emoji. It's weird.
Yeah. So guys, we need to fix that.
Yeah, it's puzzling. I'm still seeing it. Yeah. I'm seeing more snakes.
What's happening? Oh my God, multiple snakes.
Oh my God.
Someone wrote Pocahontas.
Brings it home in sharp relief, right? And the thing that I was struck by, as much as anything else, was it says a lot about this era right now, that it was better for Kevin McCarthy to be caught out in a lie, denying something he actually said, than to be caught out saying something negative about President Trump, because he was more worried about that.
Sarah Fagan.
Small rhetorical note. One thing I always try to avoid, because I hear media pundits like this say it all the time. I was struck by this. So they love saying that. So that's why I try to avoid saying it.
I'm always struck by how much they love saying I'm struck by.
They love saying I was struck by.
I was struck by that, Aaron.
Yeah. It's a big media pundit thing.
Yeah. I'm always struck by that.
As soon as those receipts came out, you see, Kevin McCarthy apologizing to President Trump, them trying to kind of smooth over that relationship. I mean, this week really kind of brings into sharp relief where the Republican Party is, right? From Kevin McCarthy having to apologize to then Trump at this rally in Ohio with a very fervent base still and speaking to, his people who may have disagreed or said that he was wrong or bared some responsibility, but quickly kind of coming around to his point of view because they understand that the party that he still wields power over this party.
Let's hear his sound. In fact, he was out stumping for J.D. Vance, one of the candidates in Ohio, and he made that point, I think, really so clearly. He just said it. Let's take a listen, and Sarah, get your reaction.
You know what? And J.D. Vance, of course, is the author of Hillbilly Elegy.
He's a guy that said some bad about me. He did. He did. But you know what? Every one of the others did also. In fact, if I went by that standard, I don't think I would have ever endorsed anybody in the country. You want to know? They all said bad, but they all came back.
And the he's talking about there is J.D. Vance, Sarah. But what does this say about Trump's grip on the Republican Party right now?
Well, there's no doubt that he is still the dominant figure in the party. And that is going to continue until the next presidential campaign. And he may be a candidate for that, and he may continue to be the dominant Republican, but somebody else might also emerge. I mean, it's just not in the interest of these candidates to pick a fight with Trump. It hasn't ended well for anybody in office to go at President Trump directly. And so what you see.
What are they going to do when one day, because it will happen, it happens to all of us, Trump exits this earth? Are they going to talk about his ghost?
Yeah, the ghost.
Are they going to analyze the impact of his ghost and his spirit over the party? And if the spirit is still with him? They just can't stop talking about
his
the guy.
chakra.
Yeah.
His aura. Yeah.
Oof. All right.
It is pretty funny watching him do this.
By these candidates, by Speaker McCarthy, hopeful Speaker McCarthy, is that in their political interests, there's no point in it. And so they quickly try to move on. And that's the smart political thing for them to do.
And what's interesting is this moment, he almost seems to be emboldened by it, saying, I can win them over.
Well, Trump has always been quick to anger and quick to forgiveness. You know, what Trump measures is, do you like him? And do you like him in the moment? And he seems to sort of feed on the fight, and he enjoys the fight, and he enjoys winning. And ultimately what happens here is that he gets members who are at odds with him, sometimes over very legitimate things, to kind of placate and come back around. And in some ways, you can become more esteemed in President Trump's eyes by doing that.
Looming over all of this are these culture wars. We saw this play out this week in Florida, where they essentially voted to remove the special status of Disney World for disagreeing with this law that bans discussion of gender and sexuality in schools through the third grade, what critics call the Don't Say Gay bill. Carol, how much, as we talk about the midterms, are culture wars going to factor in?
Look, there are Republicans who think that the culture wars are a winner for them, particularly on the transgender issues when it comes to parents. I spoke with a Republican strategist over the weekend who said if it's culture wars and immigration, it's over. We win. There are Republicans, though, who are concerned about the short-term benefits of that don't play out in the long term. But Democrats are struggling to come up with a response to all of this.
Aaron, why are Democrats still struggling? Because we saw this, particularly in the Virginia governor's race, for example. Culture wars were front and center. And yet Terry McAuliffe, the Democratic candidate for governor, really struggled to find his footing on how to address it.
Yeah, and that's exactly, Republicans know that Democrats don't have a response to the culture wars, right? And so they are continuing to do this. You're seeing this, whether it's Governor Abbott out of Texas or Governor DeSantis out of Florida. They know that talking about these things that really galvanize their voters is something that has been played to effect. It is a feature, not a bug, of the Republican playbook going into November.
Well, I have a great solution for them, Katie. Whatever their problems are on the domestic front, just keep talking about Putin's price hike. It's all about Vladimir Putin. As Nancy Pelosi once said, all roads lead to Putin. So just keep talking about Putin.
I know. Do you remember she said that?
The midterms are going to be a cakewalk.
Was that during the same? I think that was the same time that she mentioned that Hillary mentioned that she would really like to see the phone records between Donald Trump and Putin.
All roads lead to Putin because yes, Hillary and Nancy on Hillary's podcast after January 6th were speculating that Vladimir Putin might have been involved in January 6th. And so they wanted to see whether or not Trump and Putin had spoken on the morning of January 6th, with Vladimir telling Trump how to make the day go, how to organize a riot on Capitol Hill. Of course.
Right.
Yeah, of course that happened. Totally,
Terrible.
totally legitimate speculation.
Yeah. All right. By the way, there's a woman this is a little off topic, but since we're talking about what's today's date?
Today's the 25th.
Okay, so I tweeted this out, but there's a woman who's on death row. This is related to Abbott. If you do the free Melissa Lucio hashtag, free Melissa Lucio, there is a number that you can call. We don't have time to get into it now, but she is she's sentenced to death for a crime that she didn't commit. There actually was no crime there. And so I tweeted this out. You can call Greg Abbott. So I did that, and I urge everyone to do that. And you can do that at 95, and I'll put in the chat, in the description, 956-446-2866. Again, that's 956-446-2866. And if no one answers, leave a message and tell them to save Melissa Lucio. All right. Yeah. Thank you, Wilson. Okay.
And is there a hotline, Katie, people can call if they want to see CNN Plus reinstated?
That I don't have, but maybe you could actually don't. I was going to say you could tell Greg Abbott, but that may be, you don't want to dilute it. Call him back later.
Yeah.
Don't have
look,
that
we all
number,
choices. I mean, you can help save someone's life, a woman who professes her innocence.
And who the Innocence Project is backing, and tons of people, including former jurors who convicted her, are saying that they made a mistake.
Yeah. But also, if you can't, save some time to try to save CNN Plus.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who you can call. Just yell it out your window. Just over up your window and yell CNN Plus.
Yeah.
Save CNN Plus.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. I can't believe we have the death penalty in this country. I'm sorry.
No.
Sorry. It's so disgusting. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay.
This is that compilation video of war-thirsty reporters.
Oh, yeah. You want to watch it because we can see Kristen Welker in it.
Yeah.
Zelensky and other Ukrainian officials have made so clear that what they believe they need the most is more warplanes and fighter jets. So why is the U.S. assessing something different?
In a White House press briefing, reporters repeatedly asked why President Biden isn't doing more to provide Ukraine with direct military support.
Why does the U.S. believe they know better what Ukraine needs than what Ukrainian officials are saying they need the most?
That's another Shlub, the bearded Shlub.
We're pretty dug in on our position when it comes to the
There's Welker, you'll see.
When it comes to
next to her.
MiGs.
She's nodding her head.
Despite this growing bipartisan call in Congress to shift a little bit. So to put it bluntly, is Zelensky wasting his time tomorrow asking for these things?
President Zelensky is going to be speaking to Congress tomorrow. He's been pushing for fighter jets, a no-fly zone. You have to hear some of those same requests tomorrow as well. Has the administration shifted on that at all?
Though, calling for a no-fly zone. They're a NATO member. They share a border with Russia. How do we view their calls for a no-fly zone?
And on President Zelensky's address tomorrow, of course, he is expected to ask for more assistance, as my colleague noted. A lot of the U.S. positions on that haven't changed, as you just said, when it comes to the no-fly zone. But on the aircraft specifically, the Pentagon said last week that Secretary Austin said they do not support the transfer of additional fighter aircraft at this time. Is that still the United States' position?
Would a strike in Poland on supplies or anything really automatically be met with a military forceful response, or simply a conversation amongst allies about how to respond?
There are reports that a Russian drone made its way into Polish airspace before going back to Ukraine and being shot down. Does a drone into Poland count?
Former ambassador to Ukraine, Maria Ivanovich, has been quite outspoken recently. And she said we need to mitigate risk, but it's also true that not taking greater action comes with a risk as well, because Putin is a bully and he only understands strength. Is the president showing enough strength against Putin? Putin were to use chemical weapons, would it change the president's thinking when it comes to these MiGs taking the no-fly zone off the table? But at least on this, are you prepared? Can you give us any more details about what that threat means of severe consequences? The president obviously made the same threat last week. Is that purely economic consequences, or would there potentially be a military threat?
So thirsty.
Aside from the request for weapons,
And then here's
President
Ryan
Zelensky
Grimm's
has also
question.
requested that the U.S. be more involved in negotiations toward a peaceful resolution to the war. What is the U.S. doing to push those negotiations forward?
Well, one of the steps we've taken, a significant one, is to be the largest provider of military and humanitarian and economic assistance in the world, to put them in a greater position of strength as they go into these negotiations. We also engage and talk to the Ukrainians on a daily basis. And the president and this national security team has rallied the world in being unified in their opposition to the actions of President Putin. So those are the steps we're taking. We also engage oftentimes before and after any conversations that any of these global leaders are having with both Russians and Ukrainians, and encourage them to make sure they're engaging with Ukrainians directly.
Would Zelensky be empowered by the United States to reach an agreement with Russia and have U.S. sanctions released as a result?
Well, he's the leader of Ukraine, so he's empowered to have a negotiation with Russia, and we're here to support those efforts. Again, I'm not going to get ahead of a negotiation, but we are here to support those efforts. We discuss and have conversations with him, with his team on a daily basis.
Which is a very significant moment, by the way, because basically they wouldn't say that they had like free reign to negotiate a peace deal with Russia without the United States, that the United States wouldn't necessarily give up the sanctions.
No, of course not. No,
Yeah.
There was a line in the Washington Post recently where basically it was recapping the views of some people in NATO, presumably the U.S. too, and they said that for them it'd be better for Ukrainians to keep fighting and dying. That's a quote. Than to give up too many concessions to Russia, which means basically make any kind of peace agreement with Russia. That's the attitude. You know what I bet? You know, I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, imagine if after that briefing with all those reporters, like a general or a colonel came out and said, "Hey, anybody want to come to the back and drone and like take part in a drone strike? Just press a button and kill some civilians." I bet you like half the reporters in the room would be like, "Yeah,
yeah." That's crazy. Yeah.
Or like, we'll give you a package. You can take, you can press a button for a drone strike. You can sign a new sanctions package into law where you target like baby formula in Venezuela and Russia and Cuba. Or we'll let you sign the shipping manifest for a new delivery of Stinger missiles. That'd be like your three. That's on the menu today. And every day they get like an option of like what warmongering act they can take part in. I guarantee you, the majority of the press room would be giddy at that.
Yeah. I'll take a WW. Wait, where is this? I'll take a WW3. Hold the nukes. Someone wrote. Here we go. Yeah. Well, guys, this has been a great edition of Monday Morning. Please like if you haven't already liked. We want to thank all the people who came to view. Please also rate and review us, our podcasts. Another way we can defeat Pod Save America and Pod Save the World. And now please join us on Call-In. Right, Aaron?
That's right.
How much?
And how are we doing in our views to likes ratio?
Yeah, how are we doing? Where are we at now, Wilson?
We need at least half.
I know we got 20. We are above 2,000 viewers, which is great. We're gonna, it'll be higher than CNN Plus by the end of the week, at least, or the end of the day. Oh, great. We got 1K likes. Let's try to get up to, come on, give us a couple more, guys. Throw down some likes. Just 5 more, let's say. What do we got?
Can we get for all those hate watchers, because we know we're there, can we get one of you? Just one. Just one like for the hate watch. Come on.
All right. We got 1.1. That's good.
All right.
All right. Great. That's great. Yeah. Thank you, guys. So we'll see you on Call-In, and the link is in there, right, Wilson?
Yep, it's there. See everybody there.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Songweaver. Bye, everyone.